Hey there, folks. Today we're going to talk about one of the greatest heroes in the Bible, a man whose story is filled with faith, courage, and unshakable determination. Caleb. He wasn't just a warrior, but an example of perseverance and trust in God, even when the circumstances seemed impossible. Let's travel back in time and understand why Caleb became one of the most iconic figures in biblical history and how his journey continues to teach us today. Caleb was born in a turbulent time where the land of Israel was ruled by kings and foreign powers. When he was still young, life in the desert was tough and challenges were constant. But from an early age, he was marked by unwavering faith. He knew that the God of Israel was powerful, and this would make him unbeatable. During his childhood, he was probably shaped by the teachings of Moses and the leadership of Joshua, two great names in the Bible who deeply influenced him. However, Caleb's true greatness would only be revealed when he became one of the 12 spies sent by Moses to explore the Promised Land. Now, imagine this. A group of 12 men was chosen to spy on the Promised Land. They were all leaders from the tribes of Israel, and this was no small task. The mission was clear: investigate the land, its cities, its people, its wealth, and of course, what would be needed to conquer the region. But there was one big problem. This land was inhabited by giants. During the exploration, Caleb and his companions were amazed by the beauty of the land, its abundant crops and fertility. But when they reached the fortified cities and saw the giants living there, fear overtook most of the spies. 10 of the 12 spies returned with reports of terror, saying it was impossible to take possession of the land because they were facing powerful enemies and insurmountable giants. Now, here's where the most incredible part comes in. While everyone else was terrified, Caleb and Joshua stood out. They didn't let fear control them. Instead, Caleb raised his voice with deep confidence in God and proclaimed, "Let's go up and possess the land, for we will certainly prevail over it." This declaration of faith and courage is what set Caleb apart from the others. He didn't see giants as obstacles. He saw them as challenges that God would give him victory over. He believed that, with divine help, nothing would be impossible. But what happened next? The people's response was shocking. They chose to believe in fear, rejected Caleb and Joshua's words, and started murmuring against Moses. This was a turning point, as this lack of faith caused the people to be condemned to wander in the desert for 40 years. While the people of Israel wandered in the desert, Caleb didn't let himself get discouraged. He was one of the few who kept the faith and hope alive. We can imagine how difficult it must have been to see an entire generation die without ever reaching what God had promised. But Caleb knew that the promise was still alive, and he never lost his confidence. During all those years, he kept training, fighting, and trusting that one day the Promised Land would be his. He didn't settle for mediocrity. He didn't become complacent in the defeat of others. He knew that God was faithful to his promises. Now, let's pause for a moment and reflect. How many of us, when facing moments of uncertainty and prolonged difficulties, lose hope? How many of us give up when the dream seems farther and farther away? Caleb's story teaches us that, even in adversity, we can hold on to faith because God has a perfect plan for our lives. Finally, after 40 years of waiting, the moment of the promise was at hand. The people of Israel were about to enter the Promised Land. And this is where Caleb's greatness shines even brighter. At 85 years old, he didn't think about resting. He was still ready to fight for what God had promised him. With the strength of a young man and an indomitable spirit, Caleb came before Joshua and said, "Give me this mountain, because I am as strong today as I was when I was 40. I can fight and conquer this land." And it wasn't just any mountain he wanted to conquer. The mountain in question was filled with giants. Caleb knew this, but his faith didn't waver. He trusted completely that, if God had promised it, he would deliver. And so, with his courage and determination, he went to battle, and along with the children of Judah, he defeated the giants in the land of Hebron. Caleb's conquest was much more than a military victory. It was proof that, with unshakable faith and courage to act, We can conquer even the greatest challenges. He didn't let age or fear limit him. He showed that no matter how long it takes, what God promises, He will fulfill. He also taught us that when God calls us, we must be bold and confident in following His plan, regardless of the challenges that may come. And the most inspiring thing is that Caleb didn't do it alone. He stayed united with the others, setting an example for everyone around him. When he took the mountain, he wasn't just claiming his personal inheritance, but inspiring an entire generation to trust more in God. So, what can we learn from Caleb? First of all, he teaches us the importance of unwavering faith. He believed in the impossible, trusting that God was in control no matter the circumstances. If you're facing a giant in your life, whether it's a financial problem, a personal crisis, or something that seems impossible to overcome, remember Caleb. When God makes a promise, He delivers. Secondly, Caleb teaches us about perseverance. For 40 years, he waited without losing hope. Sometimes, God's promises take time, but that doesn't mean He's forgotten us. Sometimes, we need to go through a waiting period to be ready for what He has prepared for us. Finally, Caleb shows us that even when we're aging, our strength and faith don't have to diminish. He kept fighting and conquering, even at 85 years old. There's no age limit for accomplishing great things, for believing in the impossible, or for fighting for the dreams God has placed in our hearts. Caleb's story isn't just about physical battles or military victories. It's about a faith that never wavered, courage in the face of fear, and the certainty that if God promised it, He would fulfill it. Caleb is an example for all of us of how to live a life full of purpose, trust, and determination. So, what about you? Do you have a mountain you need to conquer? Maybe it's time to believe more in yourself, in your faith, and act with courage. Remember, with God by your side, no giant can stop you. And that's it. If you enjoyed this epic story of Caleb and want more biblical adventures and lessons like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing content. See you next time, folks, and remember, keep your faith strong because God's promises never fail.